Good evening, I'm Heyling Chan in Hong Kong and welcome to ViewTV News. Coming up on tonight's show, the world waits in anticipation as rescue efforts begin to free a group of Thai schoolboys trapped in a cave. Here in Hong Kong claims public consultations to tackle land supply are a waste of time because the government has already made up its mind. Plus, Japan's unprecedented downpours claim more lives while forcing 2 million people from their homes. We begin tonight with a dramatic rescue operation that's unfolding inside a Thai cave right now. In the coming hours, it's hoped the first of 12 young footballers and their coach will safely emerge after more than 2 weeks trapped underground in Chiang Rai. The mission is dangerous and it could be days before the entire group is free. Evelina Leung begins our coverage.
A moment many have been waiting for. Rescuers given the go-ahead to start the dangerous mission to free 12 schoolboys and their football coach trapped inside a Chiang Rai cave for more than 2 weeks. At 10 this morning, 13 foreign cave divers and 5 Thai Navy SEALs entered the daunting site. Media camped outside the entrance were asked to leave, with crews needing absolute focus as they tried to beat the looming bad weather. It's hoped the first boys could emerge within the next few hours, but getting everyone out will likely take days. To escape, the children must dive through dark, narrow passageways, some measuring no more than 2 feet wide. These would challenge even the most experienced divers, and some of the boys barely know how to swim. The danger was for the world to see on Friday when a former Thai Navy SEAL drowned while trying to get out. Rain showers have also been soaking the area for the past 24 hours, increasing the risks in what the governor has called a war with water and time to save the team. The boys and their coach have been in remarkably good spirits since they were found. They penned emotional letters to their parents on Saturday, telling them they're safe and not to worry.
We now turn to our reporter Britt Clennett, who's near the Chiang Rai cave. So Britt, tell us what the mood was like when you heard the operation was underway.
Well, there had been rumours swelling that the operation had started this morning. But of course, when the media centre was evacuated, it was clear that things had been turned up a notch. Now, the governor and the Thai mission commander made it clear that today was the day to get them out, not because conditions in the cave were optimum, and the water levels in there are relatively low, but also because they passed a medical exam last night, which gave them the all clear for the rescue mission to go ahead today. But that by no means means that things are completely safe and that there won't be huge risks involved. They still need to navigate dark and very narrow passages, and as you can see, it's drizzling now, but we've seen big sheets of rain come in, so that will probably hamper rescue efforts indeed as well.
So from what you understand, what should we expect when the boys are out?
Well, from what we understand, they will come out in groups of 4, with the coach coming last. We expect them to be airlifted from 2 helipads quite nearby from the cave, about 10 minutes away from the cave. They'll then be airlifted to a hospital in Chiang Rai Centre, where they will be treated. And I expect they will need quite a lot of treatment after all they've been in that cave for a very long time. I think friends and family will be anxiously waiting to see them and to see those boys alive. We spoke to a Chinese teacher earlier of one of the boys, and that was the boy who actually spoke to the divers when they were first found to be alive in English. She said that he was a lovely boy, that he was a hard-working student, and really is praying for him to come out alive. And I think that goes for all of us, religious or not, hoping for the best outcome all around the world. People are watching this and hoping for the best.
Thank you. So that was Britt Clennett in Chiang Rai. To local news now, and big question marks remain over whether the much-hyped public consultations for land supply are making any inroads. One lawmaker has described it as a charade, saying the government's mind is already made up. Lydia Sung has more.
The public consultation on land supply is at the halfway mark. But with little consensus and a lot of bickering, it seems the wheels are spinning. On a Now TV program, Democratic Party's Andrew Wan lashed out at the chief executive, saying her high-profile support for land reclamation has tainted the whole process.
The government has busted its own charade. It's dubious whether the ongoing public consultation is a genuine public survey.
Wan also accused Lam of hypocrisy after the CE dodged questions on building public housing on Fanling Golf Course, saying she shouldn't comment while the consultation continues. But Lam does have an ally of sorts in a pro-Beijing lawmaker over a raft of new property market measures, including the vacancy tax and more public housing. The Federation of Trade Unions' Alice Mack has thrown her weight behind the policies, but she also urged the government to do more to help grassroots families.
The government should adopt the FTU's proposal for the three-pronged approach as next step. This approach embraces, firstly, the giving of the rental subsidies for low-income families. Secondly, re-implementing tenancy control. And finally, extending the vacancy tax to the secondary market.
In the long run, Mack also hopes the government can increase the ratio of public to private housing from 6:4 to 7:3.
Meanwhile, a new study has uncovered a worrying trend among those living in subdivided flats. It's found 90% are being ripped off by landlords on utility bills. On average, residents were charged 2.6 times more for water and 1.6 times more for power. HKU researchers and the Concerning Grassroots Housing Rights Alliance spent 8 months poring over bills from more than 100 participants. The concern group is urging the government to implement standardized leases for subdivided dwellers, saying they're being exploited because of flimsy contracts. Police have arrested 2 men in a drug bust in Yuen Long. They seized $600,000 worth of methamphetamine and $2,000 worth of cash in the operation. 2 suspects in their 20s were taken into custody early this morning. Officers stopped them on Tung Shing Lei Road, allegedly finding the drugs and cash in their car. It's believed the drugs seized were on the way to bars and clubs across the New Territories North and Kowloon West. A scammer has stolen $2 million from a Hong Kong woman's bank account using forged signatures to get access. The 61-year-old victim says she was called by a loan agency last year, telling her to deposit the funds into a Da Sing bank account before she could be offered a low-interest loan. She followed the instructions, signing 2 documents from the agency. It's believed that's how her signature was obtained and then used to move the money. The victim, Miss Liu, has sought help from the Democratic Party, who slammed the bank for not doing enough to verify whether the transfer request was made by her.
The Da Sing Bank has been insincere in handling the matter. They just said they met with us to see what the police think about this. I'm disappointed after hearing this. They are still adopting the delaying tactic after something this big had happened. How can such tactic have resolved the problem?
Financial Secretary Paul Chan says the government is studying the possibility of increasing tax concessions for people who invest in its annuity scheme. He's posted on his blog today saying the government is thinking about raising the current maximum tax break of $36,000 to encourage people to save and invest for retirement. This would apply not only to investors of the annuity plan, but also to people who voluntarily contribute more to their mandatory Provident Fund scheme. The annuity plan allows residents aged 65 or above to invest up to $1 million in exchange for monthly income. Coming up next, the latest from the world of business. Let's start here in Hong Kong because it's a big week for the local market. Xiaomi shares start trading tomorrow in what's one of the most anticipated IPOs of the year. But it's not so much the hype as a potential flop that investors will be watching for. Shares have been priced at $17, which is at the low end, after a disappointing cap raise. This is Hong Kong's first IPO under the new dual-class share structure with different voting rights after an overhaul in April. Investors will also be carefully monitoring any new impacts of the all-out tariff war between the U.S. and China. Mainland markets did tick up at the end of the week, but that small gain is merely papering over huge losses this year. Bourses there have lost about a fifth of their value because of the trade wrangling. And as Eva Bennett reports, it may be a down payment on what's still to come.
From bourbon to beef, oranges to automobiles, US products are a popular choice in China. But it's not just consumers here who will pay the price if this trade war escalates any further. Many fear the whole world will.
With further escalation, the effects would only grow in magnitude, hitting jobs and growth in the countries involved and sending economic shockwaves around the world.
But as the epicenter of those shockwaves, few doubt it will be China who feels them the most. As things stand, economists see a cost of up to 0.3 percentage points to GDP this year, although some believe tariffs are the least of its worries.
I think that China faces some very significant headwinds, largely related to supply of credit, and these challenges dwarf the impact of changes to the tariffs on Chinese goods and services.
But that's not to say the US will remain unscathed. American firms which invest heavily in China could be hit too, along with farmers whose almonds, soybeans and cotton have been subject to tariffs in return. If it's just a numbers game, though, it's China who loses out. Last year, it imported $130 billion worth of US goods, which is 4 times less than it sent the other way. And according to President Trump, none of that is off the table.
Time for a break, but when we return, that English catch cry of "It's coming home" getting even louder after crushing Sweden in the World Cup quarterfinals. All the action from Russia next.
Do you think every day is a new day? Wouldn't it be too naive? Look at these people. They take nothing for granted. Time won't wait. Life has always been a struggle. The world won't wait. Second chances don't come around often. Physical limitation is nothing. Stop making excuses. They go the hard way. And you? What would you do for life? No excuse. Take one step ahead. No delay. Take one step ahead. No surrender. Take one step ahead. No regrets. Take one step ahead. 2018. View TV. One step ahead.
2018 FIFA World Cup on View TV 6 is brought to you by Tap and Go Mobile Wallet, Habits, FWD, Caneston Cream and Pump Spray, and Football Mobile Game, Captain Tsubasa, Dream Team.
So you think popular travel websites show you every hotel? Well, they don't. Actually, you could be missing out. Different websites show you different hotels. Some websites may only show you these, while some apps show you those. But because Trivago compares hundreds of sites, Trivago shows you a better overview of available hotels. And that's one more way Trivago helps you find your ideal hotel for the best price. Hotel Trivago.
The best non-fiction features.
Everybody are very afraid to walk alone in the street.
It's very hard for Americans actually to go to Cuba. They don't want you to go there, even today.
New ways to engage reality.
The whole process is a life lesson for the kids. They see the evolution.
It could be the same, it could be something different. You know, it's really how you take it and what you learn from when you lose.
Transforming your 1 hour TV time into an exceptional cinematic experience. Theatre 96. Tonight at 9:30 on View TV 6.
Welcome back. Recovery crews in Thailand are trying to lift a sunken tourist boat which capsized in rough seas off Phuket Island, killing at least 42 people. The Phoenix was carrying 105 people, including 93 Chinese tourists and 12 Thai crew, when it overturned in bad weather on Thursday evening. 14 people remain missing. Police have charged the ship's captain over the tragedy, although the skipper is proclaiming his innocence. 2 other boats also capsized in the same area, but their passengers were brought safely to shore. At least 64 people are now known to have died in unprecedented flooding and torrential rain that's pummeled parts of southwestern Japan. Dozens also remain missing after downpours triggered landslides and sent rivers surging over their banks. 8 prefectures, including Kyoto and Hiroshima, have been decimated by the wild weather, which has also destroyed homes and forced the evacuation of roughly 2 million people. Emergency warnings remain in place for 3 regions, with predictions as much as 300 millimeters will fall by tomorrow morning. For more on the torrential rains, our Tokyo correspondent Mayu Yoshida sent us this update.
Well, millions of people are ordered to evacuate as record downpour strikes western and central Japan. The weather agency is calling the heavy rain historic as it's triggering floods and landslides across the country. Thousands of police, firefighters, and self-defense forces are scrambling to deal with landslides and emergencies, and many people are tweeting calling for help. And although the weather settled down from its peak, there's still risk of continued heavy rain. Helicopter footage showing people on their roofs waving for help, and also Japanese soldiers rescuing children by boat from a flooded river. The weather also hit Japan's manufacturing industry because local reports say that some automakers halted production as the rain and flooding disrupted supply chains and risked workers' safety.
North Korea is contradicting claims by America's top diplomat that solid progress has been made on denuclearization. Pyongyang described the latest round of talks over the weekend as regrettable, saying the U.S. is making gangster-like demands on disarmament. Jonah Green has more on this developing rift.
North Korea said on Saturday its resolve to give up its nuclear programs may falter after talks with the United States in Pyongyang, contradicting Secretary of State Mike Pompeo.
These are complicated issues, but we made progress on almost all of the central issues. Some places, a great deal of progress. Other places, there's still more work to be done.
Pompeo had a day and a half of talks in Pyongyang seeking to hammer out details on how to dismantle North Korea's nuclear programs. But according to state media, a North Korean foreign ministry spokesman said the result of the negotiations was, quote, extremely troubling, accusing the American delegation of insisting on unilateral, complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization, whereas the North Koreans preferred, according to state media, a phased approach under which both sides took steps at the same time. Some officials in the State and Defense Departments and intelligence agencies are concerned that President Trump has put himself at a disadvantage by overstating the results of the Singapore summit last month. On this trip, Pompeo did not meet with Kim Jong-un as he had done on previous visits, though he did say the two sides agreed to hold discussions on July 12th on the repatriation of remains of Americans killed in the Korean War.
Well, it's hard to look past the denuclearization negotiations when it comes to North Korea, but believe it or not, the secretive state is playing a critical role in global conservation. It's home to one of the great bird migration routes, thanks in part to its underdeveloped countryside. Joseph Kim explains.
This is the North Korea everyone thinks of. Tests of nuclear bombs and missiles, political prison camps, and human rights abuses. But this is the other side of North Korea, home to habitats for one of the world's great bird migration routes.
Because of economic development, much of the coastlines along China and South Korea have been reclaimed already for development. And some of the most pristine tidal flats left are those along the west coast of North Korea.
This rarely seen footage of North Korea's wetlands shows where tens of thousands of birds have found refuge. So while sanctions and the dismal economy have resulted in a lack of development, experts say it may have unintentionally helped with conservation.
North Korea's mudflats have been preserved in its natural state, so it's a site for feeding for the birds and provides them a space to live. But if that disappears completely, it could collapse the food chain.
Those are black-faced spoonbills, one of the most endangered bird species in the world. And those two islands, they're one of their few breeding sites. These birds, they don't know politics. They don't have boundaries. They just fly looking for food and habitat, even across the Korean peninsula, which has been divided by warfare for almost 70 years. But sometimes even neutral entities can get caught up in agendas. Diplomatic efforts to engage North Korea have had mixed results over the years. But conservation groups have kept the door open between North Korea and the rest of the world. They've trained DPRK representatives and helped them enhance their network in international meetings. And the North Korean leader reportedly called for preservation of local ecosystems and to strengthen international collaborations.
We want to help you sustainably manage your fisheries or rice farming and so on, then that becomes more relevant.
Although negotiations for denuclearization are happening, North Korea has already joined various international conservation groups and also re-entered into a number of diplomatic relationships, raising prospects the country could open up and develop. And that's left some people to wonder how this will work in tandem with the preservation of its environment.
2 U.S. warships have sailed through the Taiwan Strait in a move that's expected to further heighten Washington's tensions with China. Taiwan claims the move is in line with the law, and the U.S. has called it a routine transit. But Chinese state media has accused the U.S. of aggravating tensions. Both countries are in a prolonged trade war, which is showing no signs of ending. China also recently fanned flames with Taiwan, running a series of military drills around the island. It's time for sports. Well, let's get straight to the World Cup, where England have defied almost 3 decades of disappointment to secure a spot in the semi-finals. And they did it in style with a 2-0 demolition of Sweden. England were set on their way at the half-hour mark when Harry Maguire rose above the pack to head home a corner, sending fans into raptures. Dele